שלום וברוכים הבאים לעוד פודקאסט מסדרת הפודקאסטים של ICA סייבר טוקס, וזהו למעשה הפודקאסט הרביעי לקראת האירוע של פתרונות סייבר של מטריקס, והיום אני מארח את אלחנדרו אסטרדה גמבוהה, סליחה, and Alejandro, sorry. Now we are moving to English.
So, don't worry. If you want, you could call me Alex. It doesn't matter.
Oh, great! Because this
whatever's easier for you.
Yeah, this is what I'm doing usually in English, because to pronounce Nachshon, it's very hard for most of the people outside of Israel. So usually it's Sean, and that's it. So exactly. I can understand you. So, Alejandro, you are the regional sales director for Iberia, Italy, and North Africa at Sonatype. I hope that I pronounced that right. And we are going to talk about the company, about the product. But first of all, let's start with a short bio. Okay?
Yeah, sure, definitely. So, I've been basically in the IT world for, 19 years. All of these years I've been on the vendor side. So I've worked for companies like IBM. I've worked for companies like Cisco, Splunk. So all of my life I've been focused in the IT world. These last 7-8 years mainly focused on security area. Obviously Cisco with all of their security focused portfolio. Splunk, although it's a big data organization, one of the main products or use cases of the product was a CM, focused 100% on security. And now Sonatype, for the past 3.5 years, I've been dedicating in application security. So although I've always been on the vendor side, it's mainly and a lot focused on the security and cybersecurity area.
So you're young, you still have your hair on your head, so everything is okay. This is what happened after 30 years.
well, I'm not that far away.
So let's start with a few words about Sonatype, about the company, when it was established, what are the main products or solutions. Okay,
yeah. So Sonatype is a company that was created many years ago, beginnings of the 2000s. It was created. We're still considered, I would consider it still a startup, if you want to put it that way. Though we've been many years in the industry. Our founder, Brian Fox, he's one of the original people committers from the Apache Maven project. So since our very origins, Sonatype has always been focused on trying to help the development world. One of the things that Sonatype does, and that many people don't really know, is we manage the Maven Central ecosystem, which is the second largest development ecosystems, where all of the Java open source projects are stored. And we've been doing this for many years now. So basically, any developer that has ever developed in Java has probably been downloading artifacts or buying packages from servers that are maintained and operated by Sonatype. We also ensure that the quality of the projects that are put into the repository have certain parameters, have certain controls. So we started off with that, and that's a huge contribution to the open source world and to the development community. And we didn't stop there, however. So after we were managing the Maven Central, we understood that there was a problem in which, maybe a developer in Israel or a developer, in any parts of the world would take a lot of time downloading packages that were stored in a repository in the United States. So we created the concept of a local repository, a binary repository, and we created an open source product which is called Nexus Repository. Still till today, it's the most widely used repository in which the developers could store locally all of the open source components they need for their packages. So that also helped a lot to accelerate the process of builds. And help doing loads of builds and improve the development process. So that was another thing that Sonatype did. In which we helped the community. We've been. And shortly after that, we started to understand many of the security challenges. So Sonatype, since many years ago, we started to use the concept of DevSecOps, even before it was known, or SecDevOps, depends what side of the or what tribe you are in. so we started to create those trends. The same. Nowadays, the software supply chain is widely used. The first people that started to actually use this term and this concept was our CEO in Sonatype. And a few years ago, I remember just joining Sonatype, he was already talking about the software supply chain. And just till now, these last few months, this last half year or so, it's been starting to be used more generally and more widely throughout the world. So we're a company in which we've focused a lot at the beginning towards the developers, towards the development community, and by leveraging the knowledge that brings the fact that we maintain the Maven Central, and it gives us the insights to this huge wealth of information. We have created a product set that will allow you and all the other organizations to manage all of the third-party code that is being used within the applications that the companies are developing.
Great.
In reality, that's our focus.
Yeah. So you're taking me directly to my next question, which is those that don't know the meaning of software supply chain. Can you explain that a bit?
Yeah. So I guess I'd like to compare the creation of software, to make it very simple, to understand as I don't know, how you build a car, how you build a TV, or how you build something, So the software supply chain refers to all of the components and the little pieces, the warehouses, the processes that you use to create the software. Now, in the world of a production line, I don't know, it'll be of a car. It'll be obviously, I don't know, the tires, the motors, the airbags, the seat belts, the seats, whatever, the fascias.
Yeah, thousands of suppliers.
Thousands of different suppliers, thousands of different little components, but all of and in the world of software, it's very, very similar. So the software supply chain within this world of development would be considered as the code, the first-party code that your own engineers, your own software developers created, which, just for your reference, is around 10% of the whole code that is put within an application. Then it's also all the third-party code, i.e. these packages that they are downloading from the public repositories, and that is approximately 90% of any given application that has been developed. So that are the parts, but then you also have the processes. You've got the tools that are involved in building that application. You've got the warehouses, where you store your code, where your source code, where you store your built artifacts. You've got the servers. You've got how you deploy it. So this is what we would consider the software supply chain. And Sonatype, we are focused primarily on the largest part of the software supply chain, which is the third-party code. All of the third-party dependencies that are being downloaded and used massively throughout the world to develop applications or develop software in a much faster way.
Yeah, it is very clear that today, to accelerate the time of go-to-market and developing everything, you're using a lot of either open code or you're buying some code from companies. And it's quite understandable that you have a lot of sources. So this is the supply chain that you refer to. And
exactly.
So managing this supply chain, it is very important. And more than that, what would be the problems if you don't manage that?
So I like to continue with the comparison, So would you get up on a car whose airbags have not been tested, whose seatbelts have not been tested, whose brakes have not been tested? At least myself, I would never do that. Would you get up on an airplane? Would you get up on a train? Would you drink a medicine? Would you take food? There's basically nothing that we would do in a normal way that in which the supply chain of that product or has not been tested and verified to make sure that it is safe. And the irony here is that software nowadays controls basically every single aspect of our life, and when you look at it now deep inside it controls the energy we consume. So from oil companies to the distribution, everybody now has their smart meters and things like that. It controls water, how the water supplies has been done, how the water's been cleaned. It controls your finances, everybody does banking through internet. It controls the farms, even farms, the huge farms have GPS and IoT and Internet of Things. Everything is connected, and if you actually hack into that software, you will be able to impact and destroy the whole crops and the whole sections. So it's funny that something that is so crucial as software is not being validated, and we are not passing the same quality assurance processes as we do with basically every single aspect in our lives, but we don't do it for software. And that is a problem. There are two, for me, there are two very, very big problems when we do not know what we put into our applications. The first one is these are just some general statistics. In average, for example, in the Java ecosystems, 1 out of every 10 package or dependency that has been downloaded has a vulnerability. So when you're using these packages, do you know if you're not downloading that 10% that has a vulnerability? In other ecosystems, the ratio is even larger. It goes up to like 30, 40% in other ecosystems like NPM or PyPy, where the amount of vulnerabilities, or I call them unintentional vulnerabilities. They were there not due to a bad actor or bad intentions. They were just vulnerabilities that the open source projects created when they were building their project. So that's a big problem. The other big problem is that unfortunately the cyber criminals have noticed that most organizations are not properly scanning the third-party code that they are incorporating into the applications. And this has led to an exponential growth of attacks via the software supply chain. And there are many creative attacks. There are many different ways, but it's scary. Literally, it's scary the amount of and the creativity that they're using. It's really impressive, the creativity that they're using to contaminate the software supply chain. And it's very logical. The cyber criminals are also businessmen. No, they want to make the most amount of money or gains, profit with the least amount of effort. We all want to do that. No, so if you go and try to hack, I don't know, I'm going to invent. And this is not. You want to go and hack a Lumi, Bank Lumi, or Phoebe. They have a really big security, like perimeter security. They've got a lot of security. It's very hard for a hacker to actually hack one of these organizations. But it's much easier to hack the committer or the person that is developing an open source project in the garage of their house, or just creating a package that you put into NPM and wait for the bank to download inadvertently, and then it's much easier to compromise their securities. So this is basically their philosophy, or how they're starting to act, and they're seeing the software supply chain as the path of least resistance, and unfortunately, year by year, we have seen exponential growth in the amount of attacks. Just for you to have an idea, from 2020 to 2021, the growth was at 650%. And in 2022, it's already in the thousands % of growth of the attacks that have been done to the software supply chain.
Yeah. Well, there is no doubt that the creativity of trying to get inside organization by bypassing the systems that should protect you. And developers are known for the idea that they want to develop fast. They want to bring as fast everything that is already made, only to connect everything, do some changes, and that's it. I have it out. And this is something that we know quite well. One of the things that you're talking about is the NPM. And yesterday I was interviewing Tony Goldwyn from Dilnea, and it was about the NPM. Now, NPM is a big issue, because if you can go into the NPM and can change any kind of rule inside, that's it. You have the golden egg in your hands. So, do Sonatype is giving any kind of solution also for this kind of vulnerabilities?
Yes. So actually, we've got a very, very interesting solution that only Sonatype could offer to the marketplace. Yeah, and we have been tracking basically more than 60 different patterns of behavior that all real committers of open source follow. And the fact that we are custodians of the Maven Central, which is the second largest development ecosystem, gives us an insight that nobody else has. Okay. No other company has. So what we've been using is obviously using algorithms and creating user behavior analytics. We've created a tool in which when a person goes into a NPM ecosystem or PyPy ecosystem and uploads a package, but they did not follow this traditional behavior, this pattern of a real open source committer, it will automatically start triggering alerts on our systems. And our customers that have this solution will actually, we would flag it as a suspicious package. We don't know if it is actually vulnerable or if it was created with bad intentions. Yeah. But what we do try to do is, hey, it wasn't created in a normal way, because we've got years and years of data to know that how the real open source committer behaves. So the behavior of this person that uploaded this package was unusual. Let us check it before you actually download it and put it into your software or allow it into your development pipeline.
So you said that it's better to have a false positive other than getting this vulnerability in.
of course, because if it was a malicious, so it's obviously false positives are not nice, but it's better to slow down the development process a little bit.
Yeah.
What we do is stop the download of this package until a security analyst of Sonatype could review that package and make sure that there's no malicious code. If there's no malicious code, we just automatically release it, and it's being able to be used by the developer in their pipelines or in their projects. But if there was a malicious code, the probability that it would execute upon download, and then the cyber criminal will be able to do lateral movements and infiltrate themselves into your organization is very big.
Yeah.
So we prefer to do that. Maybe slow down a little bit the development process instead of allowing this malicious codes. And as I was saying, this is a solution that we primarily focused a lot on NPM and Python, because these are ecosystems that NPM and PyPy, which are very susceptible to these type of attacks. Now, there are other ecosystems in which we're going to be expanding soon to them. But right now, primarily, these type of attacks are coming from these two ecosystems due to the way how they're managed and how they're created. So that is a fact, and that's a huge differentiator, something that nobody else has, and that only Sonatype could bring to the table.
Yeah, of course. One of the things that I learned is that when you're talking about cyber, giving examples usually make it more clear what you are talking about. So I would appreciate if you can give us some examples about attacks on software supply chain.
Okay. Yeah, there are loads and loads of examples. Just this year, Sonatype has detected thousands of attacks on the software supply chain. Some of them we've stopped and announced, and things like and declared openly, for we to be protected all of the development world, But I'll give you an example of 3 or 4 different types of attacks. Yeah. One of them actually is considered by many security specialists. It's considered, I don't know it as a fact, but many people would consider it as the most used hacking technique in 2021.
Okay.
Yeah? And the most used hacking technique is actually called dependency confusion. It was originated by, it was actually a research, by a white hat hacker called Alex Burstein, I think. Maybe I killed his surname, but this person started to create research packages, and upload them into NPM. And basically, the philosophy behind dependency confusion is all the organizations, the most organizations, create internal packages. Yeah, they will create, I don't know, Sonatype, whatever, package X, Y, Z. And they name their package and they use it in all of their development. Now, NPM has an issue, or an issue. I won't consider it an issue. It's a practice in which traditionally the NPM build tools, when you do a build, it would automatically download the version with the highest version or the latest version of that package. So if you could find out the name of an internal package that organization is using, and then you upload in NPM that same package with that same name, but with a very high version, i.e. the latest version, the next time that company does a build, the build packages or the NPM build tools will automatically download the highest version, which was the one that you created and that you had malicious code. As easy as that, And guess what? Companies with not millions of dollars of security, for cybersecurity, were hacked this way. They were companies with billions of dollars on it. We're talking about organizations like Apple, like Microsoft. They got compromised by this person, you know, when he was doing his research, by Alex, when he was doing his research, and once he published it and made it official, obviously with the correct disclosures, you know,
of course,
and everything, literally 2-3 days later, there were hundreds of copycats trying to replicate what he did, and a few months later, there were thousands of people or cyber criminals replicating this hacking technique because, one, it's very easy to do, it's very targeted, you know, and most organizations don't know how. And you ask the CISOs, you ask the security guys, how does the NPM build tools work? They don't have the slightest idea. You know? They will tell you, hey, I've got a firewall, I've got a WAF, I'm protected, I don't care. You know, and it's not true.
Yeah, of course.
So that's, for example, one of the techniques, you know, that has been used in this world. Now, another one is obviously one of them is called typo squatting. So I don't know. They most of the developers are typing really fast. Sometimes they get confused with a letter, or they swap the letters around. That's normal. We all do it. You know, when you're writing an email, when everything that happens like that. No, so for example, there are packages. One of them that happened recently was a package called Roblox, and the ending, the Roblox is used. Noblox, sorry, is used for a very popular game, you know, that's called Roblox. It has millions and millions of players. So basically, what the cyber criminals did was the package, the real package that was created is called Roblox.js/proxied with a D at the end. So they created a package called Noblox.js/proxies with an S. So the S and D are right beside each other. No, and they put it up into the NPM world. It had some malicious code that would do ransomware. So basically, this package was downloaded by millions of people inadvertently. No, because it was just one letter difference. It was very hard to spot unless you really, really, really would read into it. You would download that version and get some ransomware installed in your devices, and that's terrible. You know, so that's another example of it. I don't know. The solar winds, which is another example in which
is a big issue, of course.
It's a huge issue, no? So their development teams or their committers of the solar winds project got their credentials stolen and hacked. No, so once again, it's easier, no, to compromise the credentials of the open source committers than to compromise one of the big organizations and breach their security.
Of course.
No, so they stole the credentials. They modified the real original package with the credentials of the users. No, and they obviously made a wide breach. It was detected very fast, and it wasn't such a huge problem. But those are some examples of real life situations in which the software supply chain is being intentionally, yes, and let me emphasize, this is intentionally poisoned, you know, for all of the organizations to download, install, and be hacked. No.
Yeah.
There's obviously the very, very famous non-intentional issue, which is Log4j, that happened in December last year, in which there was a vulnerability, or not, remote code execution vulnerability found in this package. It was unintentional completely, but literally millions or billions of devices, not only in the world, but outside of this world, because the Mars rover and things like that had this package in it, were affected. No, so there are many things, you know, of the software supply chain that we have to take into consideration and be viewing, and these are just some examples of,
of course,
of what the
I thank you very much for that, because those are great examples. What would be the differentiator of Sonatype was other third-party code scanning tools? Because there are other scanning tools, and we know that.
Yeah. So, well, there are quite a few differentiators, but I like to go back to I would call it the origins or to the very, very, very basics. Yeah. A scanning tool, first of all, is only as good as the data that you have or the database of your scanning tool. Yeah. So if I have a database with 10 vulnerabilities now in it, and I scan my applications, well, maybe it'll be good. It'll look great. And I won't have I will have a false sense of security. So that is one of the big differentiators that we have. Sonatype has the largest vulnerability database in the world of open source, in the open source world. And once again, this comes from our knowledge of how the Maven Central works. Okay, so most tools or most security tools use as their primary source of vulnerability information a database that is called the National Vulnerability Database. Yeah, and this is an American organization, and most of it considers as the source of truth for vulnerabilities. The fact is that there is no global law that forces the open source committers to declare that they have a vulnerability in their projects, and most of them never bother to even create a CVE. In their or declared to the National Vulnerability Database. So what Sonatype did was, well, we understood this very, very early on. So we started to proactively look for vulnerabilities within the open source world. So we index every single day hundreds of different data sources, and it goes from things like we scan 2 million GitHub projects per day. Now we scan Twitter, we scan Chinese instant messaging, we scan different like hacker pages, we scan hundreds of different data sources looking for these vulnerabilities. Yeah. And these open source vulnerabilities. So we've got a vulnerability database that is by far the most complete in the world. We've got more than 15 million individual vulnerabilities detected and documented within our database. So this is a huge differentiator, because we do not, or we have the least amount of false negatives. So there's no perfect tool, but as if you have a very complete database, you will have the most secure software or more superior application when you scan it with our tools. So that's one of the key differentiators. Another one is the precision. Yeah. So one of the as you mentioned at the beginning, the main objective of most of the organizations is to try to develop applications faster. Take the time to reduce the time to market, because that is the differentiator. That is what is really making you different from your competitors. Now, in this new software world, the software controlled, the software dominated world. Now, so everybody's trying to release applications faster, release functions, release everything in a faster way. Now, so if you have a lot of false positives, then you will not help in the speed of the development.
Yeah, you will actually be vice versa.
Exactly, you will actually slow down. So once again, Sonatype understood this concept at the very beginning, and we basically created a mechanism in which we would take the hash of the open source projects, but not only of the project, but of all of the versions of those projects. So when we scan an application, we compare hashes. We don't compare names. We don't compare anything. So the probability of having a false positive is very, 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 very small. It's like having the fingerprint of a person, a criminal in this crime scene, and saying, hey, well, we've got the fingerprint of this guy, but it's not him, it's another person. It's really, really small. It's mathematically impossible practically to have false positives when you have a hash. So if the hashes match, we know that binary, that code is in your application, no matter if your developer denies it, because many times the developers, they put in their direct dependencies, and they don't even know what was automatically downloaded from the build tools. So many times this transitive dependencies or indirect dependencies that were downloaded automatically have vulnerabilities too. And then they didn't even know that they downloaded and incorporated that package into their application. So that's a second differentiator, and the third, I guess the third differentiator is that we understood once again that it is the developer that does all of this remediation. It is not the security team. The security team will work as a control point or whatever. They will establish certain policies. So we've got a very, very powerful policy engine, but that will allow the security team to control in a very detailed way the security for each application, for each developer team, or for each organization that they're overlooking. But at the end of the day, it's the developer, the one that actually remediates a vulnerability. So why would we create a tool for security with a security language focused on security people? So what we did was, which is many of the tools or scanning tools have that philosophy. We're the security part of applications, so we will create a tool for security people. So what we did was create a tool for developers that will help them improve their security posture. So what we did was create a platform in which we will provide feedback, empower the developer, for they to be self-sufficient, for they to see in their own development tools, in their IDEs, in their build CI tools, in their source code repositories, that they are incorporating third-party dependencies that have vulnerabilities and that are breaching the policies of your organization. And not only do we tell them, but we tell them how to fix it. So we give them the whole power for we to reduce that friction between the developers and the security team, and at the same time allow them to remediate much faster and not having to get reports at the end of the day or a pen test report once you finish building your application.
Yeah, after everything is already done.
Exactly.
But by the way, what is the way that the software, your software, Sonatype, is installed? Is it on locally on the developer PC, or is it kind of an agent?
So it's an on-prem solution, but we give our customers a key. They could install it on a data center, or they could install it in the cloud, or they could even do hybrid installations. And there are some agents that go, like, for example, on their IDE, they will have to go on their IDE or on their build tools, I don't know, in the build servers, so Jenkins or whatever they're using for Azure DevOps or whatever they're using to build. So they are certain type of, I like to call them plugins. They're plugins into all of the different development tool chains, that are tools that are being used throughout the CI/CD pipelines. So I would consider them like plugins that you could go in and install, and those will be giving you using the best quality data, the most precise data, and the most powerful data for the developers to actually take action in the tools. So that's key. That's fundamental.
Right. By the way, if you are checking through your system software that was already doing some compilation, would you recognize that they have vulnerabilities inside after the compilation?
Yes. So actually, so what we recommend No, so what we usually recommend is to start the scanning process at the very beginning. Even from the ID, it's a famous shift left. Try to minimize the amount of vulnerabilities that go down, that go downstream.
Yeah.
So we start at the very, very beginning. However, due to the nature of how applications are built and compiled, we know that it is not till you actually build it that we will have the visibility of all of the dependencies that were actually introduced into the application. So yes, we advise our customers as a best practice to start the shift left the earliest possible, but the best option or the most secure way is once the application is built, without it being minimized or whatever, what they do with applications nowadays, especially the mobile apps and things like that, to scan the built file, the built application, because that will give us a visibility of all of the dependencies that are incorporated into that application. And actually what one of our tool does is we take a software bill of materials of each application and all of the dependencies that create or make up that application. And what we do is every single day, you could activate a continuous monitoring functionality. And what happens is every single day we check that software bill of materials of all of your applications. So imagine you have 10,000 applications. So we have 10,000 software bill of materials.
Yeah.
And every day we automatically scan them to make sure that a new vulnerability was not detected and is not being put into your productive applications or your stage that already passed and was put into operations. Going back to your answer, I think I gave a very long answer, but yes, we try to. We recommend usually.
Yeah, of course.
To do it.
So we are just hitting the end, and what would you like people that are hearing us, seeing us, would take from this conversation?
So I guess the key part is. And once again, going back to the analogy of the cars and of the medicines and things like that, we don't do in our daily life, and we do not accept products that were not fully tested, that all of the components, that all of the ingredients, that were fully tested. We even nowadays they even check, if it was ethically sourced. If the cocoa beans that were made, they're making my chocolate were ethically grown. Or do not use palm oil that kills orangutans in God knows where. So we even check that for everything. And software is now so important in our lives, and unfortunately, we are not checking all of the components that are created in our software. And it is critical for we to be aware that the software supply chain is very big. It's only growing. It's growing and growing and growing.
Yeah,
the offer
will keep growing.
of open source. Exactly. It will keep on growing. So the offer of open source projects is growing. The demand for open source components is growing, so it won't stop, and it hasn't stopped. Sonatype track it every year for the past 10 years, and every single year it's grown at least 60% from year to year. So it's not stopping. So we really have to create an awareness and be conscious that for we to have a safer and better world, we need to have this software supply chain control. We need to know what is part of our applications for we to be really, really safe. Until we really understand that, we won't be able to do it.
Yeah, one of the things that we didn't talk about, and I will like to mention, is all the issue with open source licensing, because this is a big issue, and it's not cyber, but a lot of startups are falling those stairs because they take something that they find and it say, okay, someone said it's this kind of licensing, and after you have it in your system, you see that there are a lot of royalties to pay for that. So,
yes,
2 minutes for that, Alejandro, please.
2 minutes for that. When I talk about vulnerabilities, yes, I'm not only referring to cybersecurity vulnerabilities. There are legal vulnerabilities, there are architectural vulnerabilities, there are different types of vulnerabilities. And Sonatype, we're very aware of that. We have documented more than 2,000 different type of licenses within the open source ecosystem. So together with the software bill of materials, we could create reports of all of the legal obligations that using that package brings to your organization. So we actually have a module called the Advanced Legal Pack. It's very focused for our legal friends, but it's to make sure that from the legal point of view, we do not jeopardize the organization. And once again, it's really, really, really complicated. A traditional Java application will have probably 200 dependencies. A JavaScript project will have potentially in the thousands. So imagine a lawyer checking 200 or more different licensing agreements and manually doing that. That would basically stop the whole production line of software till it's reviewed. So within our policy engines, within our software bill of materials, within all of our products, we do incorporate the legal aspect, and it's essential for us. It's not only cybersecurity, and sorry, maybe I've spoken a lot about cybersecurity,
no, it's okay.
But when I talk about vulnerabilities, it's also the legal vulnerability. There's some things like there's some open source projects that never maintain or never update their projects. If you want to use a package from this project team, or if it's committers, that's a risk. What if you find a bug? What if you hit and these guys will never update or never maintain their project. So you don't want to incorporate those type of packages also into your ecosystem. Once again, Sonatype measures all of these things that no other organization measures. They don't even think about it, and we're already thinking about it because we use the knowledge of being the maintainers maybe central, and the insight that gives us to create our products, to make something that maybe today doesn't sometimes make sense, but in the future, or in the very near future, will make loads of sense. And it's happened to me a lot, especially in the region that I'm responsible, which is Southern Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So a few years ago, if I would talk to them about the legal responsibilities, they were like, what are you talking about? We don't care about the legal responsibilities.
Oh, yeah, today everybody cares.
Now they're talking about it.
Oh, yeah.
And so, we were doing it years ago. We were just a little bit ahead of our time.
Great. So, Alex, thank you very much for this interview. It was very, very interesting. And I believe that you would take part of the Matrix Cyber Solution Summit.
Yes, I will be there on the 23rd of June, I think.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to meet you, this is the place to do that.
Yes,
and,
please do come say hello to us, and it will be an honor and a pleasure for me to.
I would come for sure.
Well, I'm looking forward to say hello to you physically, face to face.
Good,
and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for your time, and this was exciting because I'm always dealing about the OT, the ICS, the cyber of industry and IoT, and getting a bit on the side for a different thing. It's always making good. And more than that, open source was something that I believe I'm dealing with that more than 12 years now. So I can understand exactly all the problems that you are pointing and how it became something which is very, very hard to handle today. Thank you very much, Alex.
Yeah. No, thanks to you. Thanks for your time, and see you very soon in a few weeks in Israel.
Sure.
Take care, my friend.
Thank you. Bye-bye, you too.
Bye.